Let's do the time warp again, just like the Apple II episode. Next on Our Sinclair.
You ever heard the phrase, don't dream it, be it?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? This is not my dream. As we start another crazy episode of Our Sinclair, the quirky American take on the Sinclair computer from the UK. I'm your good buddy, your good pal, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who literally runs the show after being in the Zen room. I give you the Brent.
Man, I wish.
I think you've been hitting the shrooms and the syringes, my friend.
And the yin yangs.
Thanks
Don't forget about the yin yangs.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to Our Sinclair. We got a real personal game today, personal to me, personal to you, because we're going to be looking at the ZX rendition of the Rocky Horror Show, which was the Rocky Horror Picture Show here in the States. And a movie that I was obsessed with for a good chunk of my youth back in the day. And I know you were into it quite a bit. Do you remember the first time you came across the Rocky Horror Show / Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Oh, geez. No. I mean,
boy, I'll tell you what. With a comedy partner like you make the jump so easy.
I mean, I would have been like 10?
Oh, wait, when did you actually go, what is this?
Well, first of all, have you actually seen the stage play? Like, no movie behind it, just an actual...
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I've done that.
Where did you see that at?
Charleston.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was put on by the Charleston players over there.
Yeah, it was good.
How was it?
It was great. Yeah, they've got, I mean, you got to have good singers for that, and they had good singers.
Oh, yeah. So when was the first time do you remember the first time you went to the film?
Oh, gosh. I think it was Park Place, the cinema in Charleston, but I've also seen it. The more memorable was Keith Obby.
Yeah. So
also a theater.
My buddy kept telling me, he's like, listen, you got to go with me to see this Rocky Horror Picture Show at the Midnight Movies. And I didn't go out a whole lot at that point in my high school career, but I was like, okay. He goes, I'm gonna get us a ride up there. And I was over at his house, and this blonde chick showed up dressed like I don't know how to describe what she was wearing, but it was very Rocky Horror-esque. And to keep my head, I'd never heard of this movie, and so I thought it was a horror film, a real bloody one. And that's the way it was pitched to me. This is the goriest film ever made, they told me. You're going to be recoiling in horror, they told me. And so I hopped in the car, and the chick that drove us to Charleston, which is about a half hour from here, we drove up there in a car that had no internal lights, no speedometer, no gas gauge, nothing. And she drove as fast as you could conceivably drive, and horribly. And I just sat there. I was like, what am I doing? And we got to the theater, and I saw these freaks dressed up like Goose. I'm like, my God, what is this? And then when I got in there, they gave me the virgin treatment when I walked out, which I didn't know what that was, where everyone in the theater gathers around you and just screams at you.
Points, yeah.
And points. I was like, what's happening? And so I was like, oh, and then I had braced myself because I don't really like real horrific films, you know? And so I sat down in my seat with my buddy and this chick, and I was watching this thing come up, and I was like, man, this is going to be frightening, you know? And so I got through if you've ever seen the film, there's an opening. Most of the opening is like a marriage, basically. And I was like, well, this isn't too bad. But then they actually get to the castle, and there's a point where there's a figure coming out of this elevator, and I was like, oh, this is where it's going to get nasty. And I was right, because Frankenfurter turns around Tim Curry in his Frank outfit, and you've never seen a man more gobsmacked. I was totally gobsmacked. I was like, what is this film? And the funny thing is, I was so intrigued by the movie that I fell asleep about halfway through it the first time I went.
Wow.
I felt completely...
You weren't beaten.
I felt completely asleep during the first time I saw it. And so they're like, hey, we're going to go back next week. I'm like, why? They're like, we go every week. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so the next week I was more prepared. I went back and it started listening to the songs. and watching the film to try to figure out what was happening because it's
Yeah.
kind of a confusing film to a newcomer. And then ultimately, I got hooked because if you haven't, I guess they still do Rocky Horror in some places. I don't see it around here as much as I used to, but you have people dress up like the characters in the movie. They'll go up in front of the screen and they'll reenact the movie while it's going on and run up and down the aisles. And people in the crowd are throwing stuff and
They don't let you do that much anymore.
well, they squirt guns and rice and just trash in the theater. And it was just something that became part of my weekly ritual. What else you could do on a Saturday night at like midnight? You got nothing else going on. Went to see Rocky Horror over and over and over. I've probably seen it 50 times in the theater, and it was a great time going week after week. Sometimes we'd go with a big group. Sometimes it'd just be me and a buddy, but we'd go up every week. And man, I had a lot of fun with it. And I grew to love the cast. I love all the songs. I love the cast of the original play.
Yeah.
I love all the songs from that. It was it's a great experience if you're into it. It's not for everyone.
No,
When
of
you
course not.
and sadly, to pull mine to a close, the theater that I went to see it so many times just shut down 2 weeks ago for the last time after a 43-year run. No more Park Place cinemas. So the place I went and saw Rocky all those times, and I remember it so well. The candy counter and the arcades, and it was just, and sometimes they'd move us to a smaller theater, and we'd get complain, and we'd move us back. And sometimes they'd let us wreck the theater, and sometimes they wouldn't. But we had a lot of fun. It was one of my more treasured teenage, young adult memories. And how did it stack up for you, the Brent?
Well, I watched it at home way before I saw it in theaters.
Oh, there was no videotape in the early days.
What can I say? So I knew what I was getting into the very first time. Memorable parts that are vivid to me. The stage play. I remember one of the girls' clothes fell off.
Oh yeah.
No, it was not planned.
Yeah.
Because she struggled. And of course, one of the times we went to the Keith Obby, I actually dressed up as Eddie.
Yeah,
and they pulled me on stage.
Yeah, you were in there. You look great.
That was the first and only time that has happened to me.
That was a great outfit too. You looked great.
It was great. I did a lot of stupid research.
I wish you still had that because it was a beautiful coat you had.
It got destroyed in one of the floods.
That's too bad.
But I still listen to the soundtrack every once in a while. I have personal favorites, of course, as I'm sure everybody does.
Yeah.
I actually don't prefer the play version over the movie version.
I like some of the play songs better. Yeah. What a while that popped up. Yeah. Ignore Alexa. She's an idiot. We hate the echo.
So, like I was saying, I don't remember what I was saying. All I can think of is echo.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I guess because I saw the movie and then I saw in the movie theaters the movie, and it wasn't for I was definitely in my late 20s before I ever saw the play version.
Oh wow.
Actually on video.
Yeah, I saw it on video too.
And I was like, I don't know. Why? I don't know.
Well,
because I like the live performance of it. I really enjoyed it. It was based off the play version.
Well, there's if you look down the history of this, I guess I could get into this now since we're talking about it. So I did a little research. I mean, I knew a lot of the stuff in here, but I thought it'd be interesting to go over just a bit about the actual play in the movie. So, of course, this was a play written by Richard O'Brien, who also played Riff Raff briefly in the play, and then he played him in the movie as well. And he did this, it was like 1974. And it was funny. He was out of work. He was looking for work, and he did this in his spare time. And after they sort of workshopped it one night, some people saw it. They're like, "Hey, you got something here," and he did. And it was the amount of times this play has been performed professionally is ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most performed plays outside of Shakespeare, if you can believe. I mean, it's been performed a million times
Yeah.
all over the world. And then, so they decided, hey, this is great. Let's get some of your actors here and make the film. Now, the actors that were in the play, they didn't all carry over. Some of them were better singers. In fact, the majority, Brad, Janet, Dr. Scott, and Riff Raff, were all better singers than what the movie.
Yeah.
And I like Richard Brett. I love, but I mean, the guy that had played him. If you hear his version of the Time Warp, like that guy goes bananas. It's awesome. But they had to get bigger stars to be in the film, and so they ended up getting Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon and Meatloaf, and they put Richard O'Brien back in there. And so then but some of the other guys came over, Little Nell and Tim Curry, Patricia Quinn. These people came over from the play to perform, and they were good. They were good in the play. And they were great in the film. It's hard to catch lightning in a bottle in a film. And the funny thing about this film is, like, it wasn't. I mean, let's be nice. It tanked when it came out.
Oh yeah, it was a theatrical
That's why it was
bomb in the
theater.
beginning. Yeah.
It was so ludicrous that, like, but I mean, it's a movie based on a play, based on B movies. So I mean, there's a weird thing going on there with with the thing. But I mean, think about this. This thing was performed at the Royal Court Theater. It played like in huge venues, and it ran in 1973. The show ran it ran total for 2,960 performances. This is the original play. And in 73, it won the Evening Standard Theater Award for Best Musical. So this wasn't some kind of hacky experimental theater. I mean, this was widely touted as a huge, incredible hit. And there's a bunch of reasons why. One of the reasons is the music was great.
Yeah.
The frank and open depiction of various life choice preferences is also there. It's one of the first things you ever saw that would do that. I mean, because it is out there. It does, and it's unapologetically out there. So when this got released in '75, it didn't do well at all, and so they thought, well, this might be something fun to run on midnight flicks. I believe it started in New York. And then it spread, and it turns out that this is the most screened film of all time. Of all time. It's also in the top earners list of all time. And if you consider, I mean, not in the top, say, 100, but it's up there.
Yeah.
And if you consider what this is, the fact that this movie's the most screened film of all time and one of the most lucrative films, it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious in a lot of ways. They tried to do a live stage version of this on TV a couple years ago. I don't know if you saw that, Brent.
Mm-mm.
It stunk. I hated it. And part of the reason is, newsflash, you don't just stumble across a Tim Curry every day.
No.
This guy's the king dong. He's the king dong of singing. He's the king dong of acting. He's the only guy that could pull off Frankenfurter. There's nobody else. Everyone else is just pretending he was the number one guy, and he's the guy that stirs the drink in that movie. And so it keeps going. The film keeps strolling, and of course, when you've got a successful play and an epically culty film, you've got to have some game action. The Brent.
Well, you don't, but you do.
Oh yeah, you do. You got to have some, and so. That's when, it came to pass. The Rocky Horror Show game came out. This game was on the Amstrad CPC, C64. Now, get this. There were like 3 versions of this on the C64, if you can believe it.
Really?
Yeah, and this game was completely...
I mean, all the same...
No.
Oh.
There were 2 versions to the C64 and one specific version custom-coded for the 128.
Huh.
Yeah, if you can believe that. So that's the 128 got a version that didn't happen that often, and the Spectrum has a 48K and 128K support. With the 128, you get the extra. You get the time warp.
Yeah.
You get to do the time warp, but you better be prepared to do it because you're going to be hearing the time warp a lot. This was published by the CRL Group PLC. It's funny. I read a blurb where it says they did a game called War of the Worlds. And it impressed the rights holders, the Rocky Horror license. And so they were like, listen, we're going to give you the chance to do Rocky Horror. And they were like, we're down. They released this in '85 at a price of £8.95p. It's, of course, one-player adventure. Now, listen to this, the Brent. So the people that worked on this are credited in the game in a goofy way, and I'll get to that in a minute. But and in no particular order, the people that worked on this game were Jay Darrett. Jay Darrett had probably the most experience of anybody. He did a game called Ball Breaker, Endurance, Freeze Bees, Hyperactive, Super Mutt, bunch of other stuff. Super Mutt might be good, Brent. Put that on the list. Another one, Space Doubt, which Space Doubt's actually mentioned at the end of this, and we'll get into that. Another fellow, Jeff Lee, this is all he ever worked on the ZX. Paul Andrew Stoddard, he worked on Blade Runner and the Magic Roundabout, and Ian Ellery worked on Academy, Blade Runner, Dracula, Juggernaut. I like this one, Oink, Ninja Hamster. All these games sound great. Please put these in contention. And there's another outfit called Clever Music, which I assume did the time warp music. They mentioned that when they made this game, Richard O'Brien did not get involved, right? And it says here, and this is a quote, "It's due to being terrified of technology."
I can see that.
So it says,
I can see that.
Ian Ellering, who I mentioned that worked on Oink and Ninja Hamster, did the game's programming and was a fan of Rocky Horror. And you can tell because there's plenty of stuff in it you would probably not know if you didn't have a Rocky Horror fan working on it. When this came out, it came out with a full color poster and a sticker. If you got the Spectrum version or the Amstrad, the Commodore version, which is kind of neat. And eventually, this game was remade. I've got to see this, Brent. Listen to this. In 1999, they remade this game as the Rocky Interactive Horror Show by Online Entertainment for Microsoft Windows.
Wait, the same game?
Yeah. Listen, the game, this is what I've got. This is off straight from Wiki. And I confirmed this on Moby. The game was redeveloped as a point-and-click adventure, but the aim of the game remained the same as before, with the player selecting either Brad or Jan as they try to escape the castle. The game also, get this. This is what gets me. The game also is notable for cutscenes featuring Richard O'Brien and Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee? I will say one thing. I love Christopher Lee.
I'm gonna have to look up at least those cutscenes.
I mean, Christopher Lee is famous for all the Hammer films and for playing the Man with the Golden Gun and playing in the Lord of the Rings. I mean, an epic, all-time great actor, right? But I will say one thing about Christopher Lee: he will do any role for money. I was just the other day, I was flipping through my Roku and I was looking at these weird shows. And there was a show called The Theater Macabre, hosted by Christopher Lee. I'm like, what is this? And it was Christopher Lee, like he'd filmed the intro, and then it was dubbed from another country, whatever this was. I had no idea what it was. And I thought to myself, yeah, Christopher Lee got paid. So I'm assuming that's what happened here. He went and got himself some money. The credits on this, if you finish the game, it's got its own credits. The dress design, Jay Dermott, which is one of the guys that did it. Falsies, Norma Stitz, Chief Grip, Ian Ellery, Tim's Wardrobe, C plus ACDC, Ivory Tickling, Alfing Wood, with special thanks to Richard O'Brien, Andy Layton, Pro Plus, Coca-Cola, Leg In, Woozed, The Lee Tavern, Tim's Holes, Frankie, and Mr. Zen. So you can fill in the gaps or whatever the heck that's all about, the Brent. I've been babbling on here for a while, Brent. Give the people a rundown of just exactly what the Rocky Horror Show is.
The game.
Yeah,
the Rocky Horror, the game.
Yes, the game.
I can definitely see where you could turn this into a point-and-click adventure, because when you first open it up, you're like, oh, this is a point-and-click adventure. It's not a point-and-click adventure.
No.
You control either Brad or Janet. You choose at the beginning of the game, although your choice means nothing.
Before you start, tell them about the actual opening of the game. Because you got to mention that, because that is bizarre. Go ahead, get into it.
Well, the title screen, it has the time warp music playing and little animated time warp people doing the time warp.
I assume in my mind those are the Transylvanians dancing, like
the party goers. Yeah,
and it also has the lyrics, and you can't skip it.
No, you have to watch it.
But you can repeat it,
yes.
Which is great. So if you want to listen to it over and over, now
play the game.
One quick question: did you jump up and do the time warp with the game?
No, because my first thought was, I don't remember this from the other times.
Yeah, and we did play the 128 version. You don't get the tune on the 48K. Go ahead, carry on now. I'm
So
sorry.
you pick either Brad or Janet, and they play the exact same. The only thing's different, your sprite slightly.
They're pretty different. Come
Okay,
on.
fine. They're pretty different. And you get to explore the mansion, and it has all the key locations: the dining room,
Everything, yeah.
the lab, the red room, the blue room. Everything's there.
Freezer.
Yeah.
It's got everything.
So your job is to reassemble the Medusa ray.
Yeah, that's its freeze ray.
Yeah, to so you can free your partner. If you're playing Brad, you have to free Janet, etc.
Yeah.
You do this by going around and finding parts of the machine to take back to the stage and to insert into the machine. You can only carry one part at a time, and
they're heavy.
Well, they're also blinking.
Yeah,
endlessly blinking.
Oh yeah, you got to blink.
You move at a casual pace, I would say, as you make your way through the castle. To get up to the second floor, you have to ride the elevator
or take the stairs.
No.
Yeah, you can take the stairs to get up there. Yeah, absolutely.
I never did that even once.
Yeah,
I rode the elevator every time. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, well, the stairs are right there. You never went up them?
I went up them but not to the.
You got to just get the door unlocked. But yeah, you're on the second floor if you get the door unlocked. Carry on.
Well, speaking of locked doors, several of the rooms, the red room, the blue room, I think the dining room might be locked. I can't remember.
Some are locked on one side and unlocked on the other too. Yeah.
So you have to find the keys. At least they will let you pick up as many keys as you find. You don't have to pick those up one by one. The enemies in the game are all the cast members. Your Riff Raff, your Columbia, your Eddie.
Everyone but Dr. Scott.
Yes.
Dr. Scott did not make the cut.
No, he was not in this at all. Exactly.
I mean, if I may.
If they get you, they'll say a quote from the movie and basically get in your way.
Some of them.
Yeah. Others of them will take your clothes. And if you get your clothes taken, you can't pick up new machine parts. If you have a machine part, you're okay to go ahead and put it in the machine. But you can't pick up new machine parts until you find your clothes.
Because you're hiding your chain.
Right.
With both hands.
So you just have to basically wander around the mansion to find a little pile of clothes, then you pick them back up and you do your adventure again. There's no way to lose at this except having your time run out. And the timer is tight. You get 99 game units.
Game units, that's right, because it's not seconds.
They're game units. That's what they are. But if you go through the game flawlessly, you'll end the game with like 8 game units left. It's ridiculously tight. To beat this on your first time, you have to know exactly where to go. Exactly.
Well, you can't. It's random. The parts are random, so there's no way to know.
But you have to know what rooms, what keys go with what rooms, and all that good jazz. There are a couple obstacles that you have to overcome, which is basically hit a button and it will turn off a barrier for a short amount of time.
That thing's brutal.
And I mean a short amount of time. You have just enough time. Yeah, you have just enough time to get back down the ladder and get across before it turns back on.
That sucks. That's the worst part of the game, in my opinion.
It's up there.
Because, I mean, I had many a promising game get thwarted trying to get across that stupid thing.
And you have to do it twice.
The gymnasium, yeah.
There's also a temperature gauge, and this is to thaw out Eddie.
Yeah.
If the temperature gauge gets up all the way, Eddie will unthaw, and he'll become a new enemy that runs around the mansion. You can hit a button to rethaw Eddie, and he slinks back to the freezer.
That is strange. Why would you go back?
Listen, the freezer's working. You know the rules. Get in there. Every time you want to ride the elevator just goes up and down on its own, just continuously.
By the way, it's the elevator.
Yes.
The one where he's doing a step.
Yes.
Step, boom. It's a famous one. They did a good job on that.
And every time you want to put in a machine part, you have to wait for the stage curtain to raise.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there like, okay, there it goes. And as soon as you put it in and walk off stage, if you turn around right back, it's back down. So there's no like crammed in two parts at one time.
The stage has the RKO tower in the background, just like in the movie. And presumably the pool is back there somewhere.
So I mean, that is literally the game. The visuals in this are all line art. They have a base background.
Yeah.
Depending on color, some are green, some are blue, some are yellow. It's all kind of all over the place, and everything is drawn in the line art, which is good.
Yeah,
the
art's great.
The visuals on this are very appealing. The animations are a little
goofy,
too frame-ish, your walk animation and whatnot.
Sometimes people just walk backwards. Yeah, I've noticed that.
But it's doesn't distract from what you're doing. Because there's enough little nods from the movie that you'd recognize. They're like, oh, I know what that is. I know where that's at. That it makes it fun.
Yeah.
Is the game hard?
Yes.
Once you know what you're doing.
But it's still hard.
Well, once you know what you're doing, it's not that bad.
It's the most leisurely, easy, hard game ever. Because, hold on. Because between the timer and the randomness of it, like sometimes, I've had games, I played about 20 games of this, okay? Sometimes the pieces were in pretty good spots. You can get over there real quick. Sometimes you look around, there's hardly any pieces, and you got to go hunting, and then sometimes you'll just accidentally get your clothes taken, and then you're like, and that takes extra time you don't have.
Yeah, if you get your clothes taken, the game's over.
Well, no, not necessarily, because sometimes you'll walk into the next room and they'll be sitting there.
And boy,
it happens.
If you're lucky.
A couple times.
Well, here's the thing. If you actually want to play the game to beat the game, right? You start up the game and you go to the left and right of the stage, and if there aren't at least 3 pieces on those screens, you just restart.
You just give up.
Because since you have to take every part back individually, the parts can be so far away that I don't think you can win.
I couldn't win. Maybe someone that's really good could.
No.
The problem is you can't sprint.
No.
Or anything in this. So no one's going to have an advantage, over the other. And sometimes you just get unlucky with the amount of stuff that is in the room you're going into. Like, I've walked in and, just randomly, Riff Raff had his pitchfork bray out and shot me. And the shot was already in progress. I just had to be in there. So it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. There's a lot of, when you die in this, the number one way I died, that laser beam.
Yeah.
The number 2 way I died would just be randomly getting killed by Eddie or Riff Raff with his pitchfork ray gun. But I had pretty good runs. I did not beat this game, but I came pretty close. I was within 2 pieces one time of beating it, but I ran out of time.
I haven't beaten this version. I beat it on the Apple II. If you walk into a screen and the enemy is somewhere else on the screen, they're fairly easy to dodge.
Yeah.
Because they're going to walk towards you, and then you just wait till they're close, and you can just go up and around them. Because you have depth and width to work with. But if you walk into the screen and they're instantly hit, or they pin you in a room,
yeah,
you just take it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to sugarcoat it. You just take the hit,
if you're just watching. A perfect example is you displayed it. He went to the dining room. There's a big table in there, so there's only really one lane to get through. Frank came in, took his clothes. You're screwed. You got to go now. You got to go find your clothes, and that can be a chore. So this is a game where you can turn it off and start over. And of course,
and watch the intro.
Watch the intro again. Now I'm gonna get into it here. I actually like this game a lot. In fact, I like this more than the Apple II version, and because it moves at a good tilt, and the art in this is great.
That's good.
The art that when they put the mansion together, I really got to give them credit, because I've seen it. I'm pretty intimate with the scenery in that film, and they put in little touches, little statues, little pictures. They've got the the old farmer and his wife picture up
Yep.
on the wall. They've got that dog, the Scooby Doo statues in there. They've got a lot of stuff. I mean, stuff like putting in the different rooms it's all nice touches. The elevator. They've done a lot of great stuff. The big Frank picture they've got on the wall, which is funny. Frank walks around in his robe and his with his big collar, and
Yep.
Magenta has like the Bride of Frankenstein hair, and Riff Raff, if you catch her, he'll be like, "They never liked me."
Yeah, well,
He'll
yeah.
say that little phrase.
They're all in evil mode. This is the end of the
And
film.
Meatloaf will say something. If you can actually touch these guys without getting killed.
Some of them. Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, you touch them like the side or
Yeah.
something, so like you won't die. And they'll say a little word from the show. I mean, I like it. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's your typical ZX game. It had 2/3 of the screen is screen and 1/3 given to a basically not much, you know. But
yeah, because for this game, there's no reason to have that bottom section. They could have made it a lot smaller and it'd have been the same effect.
But I mean, it's challenging, and one of the things this game does, one thing this game does have is there's a lot of replay value. I mean, you can play this over and over, and it's going to be different every time because you have to go get those pieces. I mean, if you look at this, just I'm looking at the game, forget about the Rocky Horror front end. Look at the game where you have to just go around and get all the pieces and complete the puzzle. It's never going to be the same twice. So once you complete it once, you can go back and try again. And like I said, I got to the point where I ran out of time one time. I was like just missing a couple pieces. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Sometimes you'll have a great run and you really think you're getting somewhere. And then I had a great run going. I mean, I was killing it. And then that stupid laser killed me. It's happened to me multiple times. And that could be the laser is the worst thing. We didn't mention this, and we just passed. There's a button in one of the walls that says "Do not press." If you press it a couple of times, you get warped into the Zen room. The Zen room is in the movie. The Zen room is like the drug room, and so in the game, there's a syringe and some mushrooms, stuff floating around in this room. It's real bizarre, you know. But once you get beamed in there, it's unlocked on the other side. But there are pieces in the Zen room. So
sometimes
you got to go in there. I don't know if did you watch the ending of the game to see what it looked like? At the end of the game, if you free Brad or Janet, it says you made it. You know, get out of here. And then at the end of the game, it shows the castle launching up into space, just like it does in the movie. The opening castle picture where the lightning strikes and stuff, where it says "Do not enter" or whatever.
Enter at your own risk.
That's cool, and they did a good job on the image there. They did a good job on the image of the house going up into space. It looks pretty cool. So at least you get a pretty cool ending out of it. I would like to see more tunes. They could have added a few more tunes. Anything that would have made the game exponentially more fun.
Yeah, because Time Warp gets pretty old because it's not a great version.
It's not the best version of Time Warp. But if you got the 128, we know that it can do it. I would love to have heard some any digitized audio for the movie. But I mean, we've heard it on ZX before. That would have been a lot more fun for me. But I mean, I thought it was. I really actually I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it quite a bit because it took me back to a place I hadn't thought about for a while, and also because it was a challenging game that wasn't hard. I mean, it's a game that it's hard, but not hard to play. It's just hard to win.
Here's my problem with the game.
Yeah.
First of all, the sound loop is unnecessary. It would have been better if it was occasional and you had beeps and boops otherwise.
Yeah.
Every time you go, it's a flip screen game. I guess we should have probably mentioned that. Every time you flip to a new screen, it flashes. It has this static effect.
It does.
It sucks.
I don't know why they did that.
I don't either, but I don't like it. All the pieces flash continuously. I understand for some of the rooms are busy and they want you to know that they're there. But I did not like that effect. It messed with my eyes a couple times. Especially if there were a lot of pieces on the board. It messed with me. Missing the elevator by a few moments and then have to sit there and wait for it to go up and down. Stuff like that, I get that's part of the gameplay. But that's annoying. Overall, the game, if this game didn't have a Rocky Horror theme, I would be a lot harsher on it. Because I don't think the core game, unlike yourself, I don't think the core gameplay element is attractive enough to make a game fun with the Rocky Horror elements, and only because of the Rocky Horror elements, where you get to go somewhere and you're like, oh, this is that room or this is that scene. I love this part of the movie. To have it filter back in, which is what a movie game is supposed to do. That's sort of the whole point, to play off the license. It makes it entertaining enough to experience. I'm not going to play this a million times. I'm not going to play this again unless it comes up onto another show or whatever. It's fun to experience a couple times if you have an attachment to Rocky. Otherwise, it's good. It's fine. But I'm not going to ever come back to this. I don't think the replayability is there like you think it is.
I'll bring it back. I like it. And I do. I agree with you. What you said that they did a great job rerunning the castle. That's a big part of it. Just the fact that you can explore, which is fun, and it's also I like a laid back game. Like I said,
this is laid back.
It's just laid back because you don't have a choice, but it's also
intense,
you're in a hurry, but it's laid back.
Yeah.
So it's very odd. But I did enjoy the game. It does give you multiple control options if that's your bag. One thing I think they could have done, missed opportunity to increase the difficulty a little bit, is let you fiddle with how many seconds you've got, like make it easier, give you an extra 120 seconds, something like that. Or they could have let you lessen the time limit. They also could have let you, like, another thing you could do is like when you put the pieces in the thing, it could have been like a puzzle. They could have made that an element to take the extra time. That would have been kind of fun. So there were room here with very minor changes. They could have made the game more interesting and more approachable. Or another thing that would have been great, you have Brad and Janet. It'd be a nice. This is a serial game. You play it over the serial. One guy's playing Brad, one's playing Janet. You both explore the castle. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, having this multiplayer would actually help a lot.
I mean, you couldn't do it on one screen due to the obvious, I mean, you could, but you don't have to go to the same screen every time.
No, I think you could do it. I think you could set it up spy versus spy style.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Split screen. That's a great idea.
Because you could just put the thermometer and the timer in the middle. You'd be good to go.
And you really don't need the thermometer. I mean, you could just you can have a thing that says warning, he's unthawing, stuff like that. Because once he unthaws, he's just another guy to avoid. Avoiding the guys, this is not terribly difficult unless you get an odd.
Unless you get pinned, yeah.
I looked up the reviews on this, the Brent, to see what the magazines thought about it. ASM gave this a 90. They liked it.
That's
CVG gave it an 88, and Sinclair user gave it a 60%. They didn't like it that much. We did get some Discord action on this thing, the Brent, if you'll indulge me here. Starting out, we've got Jed Byrne, who chimes in. This is one of those games that seems to be on every machine, but I've never played it on my Spectrum. I was looking forward to making a comparison. I loaded up the 128 version. It starts with a great picture and nice lightning effects. Comparing this to the C64 and Apple II, I think this is the best of the bunch. The Specky's pixel detail and vivid color shine here. The program is clearly pleased with their lightning effect because it won't let you move on until after it's been shown a few times. That's true. It is nice. Then we are treated to a rendition of Lesson of the Time Warp with some nice dancing sprites. It sounds very crude and beepy, so I thought it must be the 48K tune. It isn't. The 48K tune is much worse. That's true. After it finishes, it offers a 1 to repeat. No one is ever going to press 1. Jed Byrne's on fire here. On the next screen, 2 sprites crawl painfully slowly towards the center of the screen.
Yes.
We are asked if we want to be Brad or Janet, but there's no clue how we do this. At this point, I decided to read the instructions. It says use the BJ keys. I got lucky. I was just going to type in Brad.
I just kind of knew, yeah.
I tried to redefine keys, but it failed. I couldn't do it either, by the way. I couldn't get mine to redefine keys. You don't just press the key you want. Instead, you have to press space repeatedly to choose a key, and the instructions say press enter when the file selection has been made. Enter did not work for me, so I played the standard keys. I did the exact same thing. I also read there's a bug with the Kingston joystick.
Yeah.
And so now it's not in every version, but it's in like the 128 version, but not the 48K version.
And you can run a poke command to get past it.
How are you botching this stuff?
I don't know, man.
We didn't talk. Now this is a dark spot on the Rocky Horror here. They've dropped the popcorn. And that bit. I'm talking about the start a lot because it's the most interesting part of the game. Brad and Janet walk very, 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 very slowly from room to room, going back and forth, collecting pieces to take the stage so that after the curtain has been also slowly raised, they can be added to the board. 1 to avoid. It's always been a repetitive game, but there usually some fun to be wandering around the mansion. Not on the Specky, it's just too slow. I didn't think it was all that slow,
It's
yeah, yeah.
pretty slow.
Pajako also chimed in to Brent. He writes, I was introduced to the Rocky. By the way, Pajako posted some very hilarious Rocky Horror pictures of him in the Discord for your perusal if you haven't seen them yet. Um, Jocko says, I was introduced to Rocky Horror at quite a young age by my folks who also took me to see a live stage show with 8 Edmondson as Brad. I would pay dollar bill to see that. Can you, of all the people for Abe to played Brad? A few years later, so Rocky Horror is part of my nostalgia ecosystem. I can't get over that. I recall picking this up at a bargain bin for my Specky and being quite enthralled by the naughtiness of it all. It was the 128K version with the music. I never realized the 48K version just has an awful rendition of the time warp into the intro, but the rest of the game is devoid of music. Not the worst. I've loaded this up on and off over the years, and I still haven't completed it, and there's a reason why. Removing my magenta tinted glasses, I see that Rocky Horror isn't a great game. Fun, yes, great, no. You're relying on luck with the placement of the D-Medusa parts. You have very little margin for error. So losing your clothes and having to find them means you are pretty much done for. This is also a game where early on you'll know if you've got enough time to complete it. It is also very slow, taking forever to traverse the map. Every time you replace a piece of the D Medusa, you have to wait for the curtain to lift on the stage. You also can't skip the intro. You walk to another room and run into Eddie on his bike or another character, and you die and lose your clothes, which is quite unfair. But I kept playing and yelling about abuse of the TV. So it must have had something. I would say, as a curio of Spectrum Gaming, this is worth a look. Magenta tinted glasses on 8 out of 10. Looking at this through modern cynical eyes, 5 out of 10. P.S. If you want a Spectrum-like version but running faster, play the CPC version. However, if you want the best experience, play on the Commodore 128 version, although this still suffers from the same design flaws. So there you go. Couple people
Details.
chimed
I liked it.
You know, none of these people are wrong. Okay, I mean, let's call a spade here. This is not. They didn't reinvent the wheel with a Rocky Horror.
No.
And am I wearing my magenta tinted glasses? Somewhat, because I do love this is a game I love. I mean, the movie I love, the play I love. I've got the soundtracks, the box set. I mean, I love all of it, right? And so I'm more inclined to enjoy it. It's funny, all this stuff where everybody gets into nostalgia for video games. I don't have it that much, but there every once in a while something comes along, and this is for me. This is one that really gets me in my feelies for back in the day. So, but I think if you're not a Rocky Horror fan, I would play this just to give it a shot. It's worth a shot. No, I think it's worth the play.
No, it's not.
I think it is. I think it's a game that's okay. If you're a Rocky Horror fan, you need to absolutely play it because it's got a lot of very interesting art. It's amusing. They knew what they were doing in terms of movie trivia and whatnot when they put it together, and I think it's a lot of fun. So that's the way we'll shut that one down. I want to talk about our next episode, Brent, of Our Sinclair. This is another one. I got to give the selection committee. By the way, Rocky Horror won like by a mile. The selection committee demanded Rocky Horror. And I love them, and they also demanded this. Now, this is a show that I've only had a cup of coffee with over the years, but I've been well aware of it. And so on June 9th edition of Our Sinclair, we'll be looking at Thunderbirds.
Yes.
Thunderbirds are go, Brent. And we're going to be checking them out. That should be a lot of fun. Next week on ARG Presents, we're going to have a special 4 p.m. on Monday, May 27th edition, because it's a holiday here in the States. Next week on Monday at 4 p.m., Brent, we're going to be looking at serial port games. These games have to be played with some sort of link cable. It's got to be a cable.
Yes.
And so that's the way we're going to approach it. So that'll be May 27th. Couple bits of housekeeping here before we take it to the house. I want to thank everyone who checked out the Pod Jam wrap-up show this week. I don't know if you saw it.
Very good. Yeah.
If we looked at every podcast that was entered in the contest, and we actually awarded the prize this week. So if you want to go in there and see, should I reveal who won the? Yeah,
you got a whole video about it, and it's a good video.
Yeah, next week we'll mention it, but we do have a winner. So if you were interested in the Pod Jam or don't even know what the Pod Jam was, go check out our show on YouTube about the Pod Jam. It'll give you a sample of all the shows that we talk about. It was a lot of fun. Also, if you're an Amiga aficionado, I did a live stream Friday where I played the games from JOTD, all the arcade conversions that he's brought over from the arcade to the Amiga. Some of them are transcode, some of them he's reproduced by hand. And I love that. I had a lot of fun on that show. It's been well received. So if you're looking to get some modern arcade reproductions for your Amiga, this would be probably an interesting show to check out. I want to mention that Boatfest, we're less than a month away from the Boatfest. I believe it's the weekend, the 14th.
14th through the 16th.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun. June 14th, 15th, 16th, here in Hurricane, West Virginia. Still time to join us, especially if you're a local fellow somewhere between, say, Illinois and, say, Jersey. We're in your ballpark. Come on down. You'll have a good time. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff there. And that should be a fun-filled event. Are you looking forward to the boat?
Yeah, and you can find out more information and get tickets. Just go to Boatfest, BOATFEST.info.
Oh,
INFO.
look at you, the Brent. You actually knew the webpage. Very impressive. Anything going on in the world of the Brent that you'd like to fill people in on? You had a podcast in the Pod Jam that I quite enjoyed. I didn't expect it. That's what a podcast from you. I was real surprised, to be honest with you. Anything else going on in the Brent life?
Nope.
There never is. So that's all we got this week. I hope you enjoyed our look at Rocky Horror Show. And until the next Our Sinclair, remember one key phrase: don't dream it.
Step to the left.
Now, you idiot.